All right, welcome to a special edition of the Variant Cast. And by special edition, I mean a normal video where we're going to be ranking the MCU trilogies. Everybody's been, asking me. I can't go anywhere, can't go to the grocery store, can't go to the liquor store without somebody asking me to rank my MCU trilogies. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. I got Trent alongside with me. I think we'll probably agree, but if we don't, we'll have to, argue it out and come to an agreement, as this is the official Variant Cast list. That's why Trent had to fly down here from the other side of the country. This is law binding. That's the word.
Yep. I had to be here. It was mandated, and it's in my contract. So
yeah,
I am.
And you probably want the death threats to stop.
Yeah.
So
people screaming at me in the store.
Just needing to know how you feel about these Marvel movies. So we got them here. I'm sure you can kind of see. It's, you don't need to see like everything, but just know like there's Iron Man, there's Spider-Man, there's some Guardians, there's Captain, there's Ant-Man, and there's Thor. And then we're going to be adding on at the end Deadpool, because you probably are asking that right now. Hey, is this Deadpool count? It's not technically an MCU trilogy, but it ends in the MCU, so we're counting it.
Yep.
So I guess let's start with the worst. What is the worst trilogy out of these 7 movies, or I guess 6? We're going to kind of add in Deadpool at the end here.
So in terms of coherentness, I would say Ant-Man. I think that each 3 movies like distinguishably different. But I don't know if that necessarily works for Ant-Man. And if you look at Ant-Man 1 versus Quantumania, like it's hard to see where the trilogy lies,
And like you would hope that if you are going from the first Ant-Man to Quantumania, that there would be a nice bridge, and I don't think Ant-Man and the Wasp is that.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp is closer to the original Ant-Man.
Yeah.
In terms of just vibe, but also it kind of loses Hank Pym in 2 and 3 is not the same Hank Pym from the first Ant-Man, and I think that's to a detriment. I think he was the most interesting as a character in the first one.
Yeah.
And then he kind of loses that. Like, he still is grouchy and stuff, but he doesn't stand on business. He doesn't actually affect the plot. He kind of just goes along with whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like something the first Hank Pym would have done.
Mm-hmm.
In the first movie. And I agree. I don't hate Quantumania, but in terms of a cohesive story, I understand there's like a whole blip in there. Cassie gets aged up very much from 2 to 3, and it kind of loses a lot of that dynamic that the first 2 built on.
Yeah.
And even the best movie there is the first Ant-Man, and the first Ant-Man is also just like a good superhero movie. It's not a great one.
Yeah. Definitely. And the reasons why Ant-Man works isn't like the things that they kept going with in the trilogy, and I think that's the reason why it's the bottom.
So now we don't count Love and Thunder, right? It ends with Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But I think even including Ragnarok, I would put Thor at 5.
Yeah.
Just because Thor 1 is very akin to Ant-Man 1, and just it's a good movie, maybe even less so than Ant-Man, in my opinion, but it's not a great movie by any means. I think Thor: The Dark World, it's now reached an age of movie that it has its defenders, but I still find it a very boring piece of superhero media.
Yeah.
Outside of the dynamic between Thor and Loki in that movie, I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But when Loki's not on screen, which is the majority of Thor: The Dark World, it is boring.
Yeah.
And without the Love and Thunder, which still doesn't really give you a sense of fulfillment, Natalie Portman's character just there.
Yeah.
And just kind of in the way a lot of the time. Very much just feels like the human characters in like Transformers almost, of just like, why are they here?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
She has a few good lines in the first one. She's kind of just there in the second one. So this is where it's going to get tough. For number 4, what are you thinking? I'm pretty confident in my number 4.
I would go with Spider-Man.
I would go with Iron Man. And that's because I don't love 2.
Yeah.
And I think that Iron Man 2 is worse than any of the Spider-Man movies.
That is a fact. But I do think that the overall arc of the Iron Man movies is stronger than the Spider-Man movies, because you have him dealing with like the PTSD, and you have Pepper and Happy both having arcs throughout all of those, and a clear like 3 villains, and I think that's the reason why I would put it above Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm trying to just like movie by movie. I just like every Spider-Man movie,
because like you still need to watch the 5 other Spider-Man movies to enjoy No Way Home. Like, you don't have to watch the other 5 Spider-Man movies to enjoy No Way Home, but that definitely like
is a big part of the enjoyment.
It's a big part of the third one, and like he doesn't have in the fact that they do use Green Goblin, I feel like
use him a lot.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide if like you hadn't watched a movie ever, right, and you were sit down and watch No Way Home or Iron Man 2, would you enjoy more? And I think you probably still enjoy No Way Home more. I don't know though. That's hard to say, because I don't know what No Way Home would be like.
Yeah.
Without the references and the nods. So I can get with that, but like if we scratch those out and we're just looking at Homecoming,
good films.
Homecoming and Iron Man 1. Iron Man 1's probably better than Homecoming. I think Iron Man 1 is just the best out of, like, if you put all these 6 films in a line and you were like, pick the best one, you're going to pick Iron Man 1.
Far From Home is better than Iron Man 2, and I would probably say Iron Man 3
yeah.
Iron Man 3 would probably be
better
to rewatch,
and like at least in a trilogy. Yeah, I can get with that. So we can say those are 4 and 3.
Yeah.
And then it kind of comes down to what you're going.
And the Cap trilogy is really high, but I mean, the Guardians, like, you could watch the Guardians movies without having watched any of the other MCU movies, and you'd still follow along. And so for that reason, I think it's the strongest.
This one's probably the least amount of debate, because I think it's the only Marvel trilogy that feels like it was planned out start to finish.
Yeah.
And that's because it was. Even with the firing and unfiring of James Gunn, Volume 3 was always supposed to be a rocket story. It was always supposed to be about Elseworld and High Evolutionary. Like, that never changed.
Yeah.
Cap 2 wasn't always supposed to be Civil War. I mean, Cap 3 wasn't always supposed to be Civil War. I think Cap 2 was probably changed. I think it was called Serpent Society at first, but I think it was always supposed to be about Hydra.
Well, Serpent Society turned into Civil War.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier was always Winter Soldier, I think. So yeah, I think it probably the most studio meddling was with Civil War, and Civil War is a great film, but it does, have the introduction of, MCU Spider-Man and the introduction of Black Panther, that doesn't take away from the film necessarily, and honestly added to it for the initial viewing.
And those characters, I feel like, kind of add stuff to Cap's story, right? Like Spider-Man choosing Iron Man over Cap is like, at least in the comics, a big a big turning point. And I feel like I feel like Civil War is a good end to the trilogy. If you're looking at it like Cap's beliefs and like his arc like is still the same as the first movie. But yeah, the only reason why I put Guardians above it is because watching the end of Guardians 3, like you're thinking about Guardians 2 and Guardians 1, but at the end of Civil War, you're not necessarily like reminiscing back about like the Winter Soldier.
Guardians 3 made 2 and 1 better films.
Yeah.
Civil War doesn't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them worse films by any means, but it just doesn't actually like add to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and probably the biggest disparity is Guardians Volume 1 kind of shaped the next 10 years of cinema, if we're being honest. The way music drops are put into action movies definitely, I think, changed with Guardians. And there's so many movies now that are team-up movies of like ragtag misfits, and they all like try to follow that Guardians formula.
Yeah.
It really is kind of a cornerstone film in the it's almost like if the superhero subgenre is a subgenre of action, Guardians created a subgenre that was then followed with Suicide Squad and The Suicide Squad and Borderlands and all of these films trying to like capitalize on, not capitalize necessarily, but kind of derive inspiration from it.
Yeah.
And the first Avenger, I think, is just kind of a fine film. And maybe that's the fault of the oversaturation of World War II, like action movies.
Yeah.
Because it does, it doesn't feel like that totally, but like there are scenes where you're just like, oh, we're in World War II, and this is kind of still finding himself as a character.
Yeah.
I think Captain America was a very boring character to start because he was so just like wholly good.
Yeah.
And then it really took until Winter Soldier for him to become more fleshed out.
Yeah.
So I think 2 and 3 of Captain America are right up there with the best in the MCU. But First Avenger does kind of just sit in the middle. While I think all of the Guardians trilogy stays up there in the top.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the question of where would Deadpool fall on this list? And that's a tough one.
Yeah. I kind of want to put it with Spider-Man.
Like almost like exactly with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because you could like 4.
It's kind of a messy trilogy.
Yeah, it is. But 1 and 2 are pretty straight.
Yeah.
But it's almost the exact same thing as Spider-Man. Except like with the third one being a messy multiverse movie that's enjoyable. But like if you didn't watch Logan, if you weren't like part of the internet zeitgeist of knowing Gambit's existence and non-existence or any of that stuff, the random like Chris Evans cameo where he's Human Torch, like that stuff wouldn't be enjoyable if you, much like No Way Home wouldn't be enjoyable without understanding the references.
Yeah.
I think the first Deadpool though is probably better than Homecoming. I think the first Deadpool is one of the best superhero movies.
I agree.
Like top 15 superhero movie. I think if it's hard for me to like picture that right now. But I think Far From Home is very underrated. And I think Deadpool 2 does have, a few slower points of it.
Yeah.
It's a longer movie with a bigger budget. And because of that, I think it kind of lost its like initial like gritty charm that it has in the first one.
Yeah.
That being said, I think depending on the person that you are, you may enjoy Deadpool 2 a lot more than you enjoy Far From Home.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're fairly equally quality of films, I think. And I think it's fair. If I was going to put one above the other, I think I put Deadpool a bit higher.
Yeah.
I think
I would too. Just because, the all the needed extra additional content, the MCU context that you need for the Spider-Man, for at least the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, that Deadpool does a good job of inserting, but not needing to know what it is.
And Deadpool also, like when he references stuff, it's funny even not understanding the reference fully,
Yeah.
because he's saying something absurd at the same time, while the references in Far From Home are more just like subtle
that guy.
nods, like look at this, woo,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think, yeah, right at 4 is where I would put it, assuming this list then goes to 7. Then the official list would be at 7 Ant-Man, at 6 Thor, at 5 Spider-Man, at 4 Deadpool, at 3 Iron Man, at 2 Captain America, and at 1 Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Big James Gunn heads here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's warranted. I mean, if you think that the Guardians trilogy isn't a great trilogy, then you're just wrong.
Or you just have completely different tastes on movies, and that's fine. Tell us all about it in the comments section below. But I think that what makes, his films different is, the love that goes into them. And I think in the world of the MCU that is so like production driven, studio driven, the fact that his vision shines through as, bright as it does is really what sets that trilogy apart for me. And I think that's the one that I will rewatch the most. When I have kids, that will be the trilogy that I show them first. And it stands on its own from the rest of the MCU. The biggest knock on it is, the Gamora thing. I think that if Gamora, I feel like Gamora didn't have to die. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think you could have had, I guess it was like a pretty big, I don't know. I just feel like Gamora didn't have to die. I don't know what you would have done in that. But it's just a real bummer to not have like her and Peter, like, because it does feel like such a solid love story.
Yeah.
That just gets halted because his Gamora does die. There's no happy ending to it. His Gamora dies.
Yeah.
And I think everybody thought with the other Gamora from the different dimension coming through that it was going to somehow all end up all hunky dory. But nope, she is dead. And I think that was the best way to handle it, but it does suck that, like, I feel like if there was one thing that had to be tweaked writing, it was that. So, yeah. But if you enjoyed this rambling and ranking of these Marvel movies, feel free to give us a like. We should do more of these, and check out our full show where we talk for hours and hours and hours. There's hours of content to hear us talk about movies. If you so choose, if you want to, fall asleep to it or put it on while you are cleaning or whatever, and let us know what you would like us to talk about, or, what kind of pastry you think we eat in our free time. Go ahead with that. I know you have the claim that you've been eating donuts. I don't know if that is true.
Yeah. Somebody told me to put the donuts back in the box.
It really makes you wonder.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do with donuts if not eat them?
Yeah.
I put them back in the box, let them get stale. I think not.
Yeah.
I think you house those donuts and come back and watch more Variant Cast.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all.
Deuces.